Hello, Bashar. It
And
is
to you, good day.
so exciting to talk to you, and I hope that you're doing well in this now.
Of course I am. I wouldn't be doing otherwise.
Well, that's wonderful.
What would you like to
Thanks.
discuss today?
Well, the first thing I wanted to ask you about regarding the connection, the topic of connection and how important the breath is. I recently came across a book called the Arasatma, which is the alchemical breathing techniques of the ancients. And it says that the Montauk Indians were custodians of this sacred body of work and has a unique process of breathing that creates a balance between the three vehicles of experience: body, soul, and spirit. And my question is there a way to use this breath and the pranic tube in its full capacity as the channel for the flow of resources once we have cleared it completely from emotional blockages?
Well, yes, why wouldn't it be?
Well, I was just curious how the breath relates to the information passing through
all
our
right.
physical body.
It's based on the idea of the vibrational resonance of the oxygen molecule. So the idea is that the reason you take in and start breathing differently, the idea of oxygen, resonates throughout the body in a hyperspatial, hyperdimensional way that expands your frequency to be able to handle more and more higher frequency information and energies. So oxygen is the eightfold key, vibrationally speaking, and gives the resonance that is necessary for higher dimensional communication.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And does that connect with the idea of hydrogen being fractal and having a way to sort of create its own gravity? That
It is related but not essential to understand that based on what we are now talking about. Oxygen is the key.
Okay. And does it also relate to sort of the positive and negative flow of our bodies and how healthy we are as far as having enough positive and negative charge?
Yes, and if you'll understand the idea, you will understand that oxygen is the equivalent of the dimensional shape that you know as a Merkaba. Do you understand?
Yes, okay.
Because it is two interpenetrating tetrahedrons, each of 4 points for a total of 8, and interpenetrating representing the idea of as above, so below, or the positive and the negative flow. So when you think of the idea of oxygen and breathing in your meditative states, then also you can hold the image of a Merkaba, the double interpenetrating tetrahedral structure, in your mind to stabilize and accentuate the flow of the oxygen throughout your body into higher frequency domains.
Wow. That's really fascinating. And it reminds me, so another thing regarding the importance of fascia, and a permission slip that she gave me was yin yoga. And we talked a lot about how, again, in as above, so below, the mycelial network as a part of the bigger DNA connection to the higher dimensional realities.
Yes. There are interconnections on every level.
Okay. How does light affect that connection?
Since everything is light, in what you might refer to as crystallized form, then light can act as a softening agent, an unlocking agent, depending upon the frequency of the light, to allow the crystallized light to be unlocked and reformed and transformed in whatever way, shape, or form benefits and is of service to your passion.
Okay, so my understanding is that I have left light codes in places. I recently came from Hawaii with a group of women, and it was very important that I go there physically. And Sarasota, Florida is another place. And I'm curious about what it is that I'm not what I'm supposed to do, because I understand the light is sentient and it's there and my body, it knows what to do. But I'm just curious about the idea of collecting light codes and how they are different or holding different information. And as we move through the galaxy, how the light is different for us now.
Well, again, the idea of light codes is simply the freezing of certain patterns of information in its natural form of light, and recollecting them can be reminding, literally reminding yourself more completely of who and what you are. You may have left breadcrumbs for yourself, as you say, seeds of yourself that form the process of gathering yourself back together.
Okay. And I have been working on that quite a bit. And as my last and other bigger question was, as I have realized that my biggest excitement in life was going through the process of addiction and healing, and not just healing for myself, but healing for my family. I understand it as sort of clearing generational trauma, generational patterns. And as that is my role, which I'm happy to take on, I've watched things change in my family, and I'm wondering how that then extends out to the collective. Is that something that I'm clearing by proxy, that then it just sort of goes out? Or is it a slow connection?
Remember, everything is connected. Everything you do is capable of being utilized by everyone throughout the multiverse. You may not always know how, you may not always know when, but the connection, the network exists, and everything you do and every choice you make and every energy you radiate offers an opportunity to all, in their own way, from their own perspective, the opportunity to consider other choices they may not have considered. Of course, it is always still up to them to match that frequency to have the experience that you may be offering. So the best you can do is simply put it out there and know that if there is somebody willing to take advantage of it, it is available to them. And that's the most you can do.
Okay. Well, that excites me in the sense that as I attend AA meetings or I'm out discussing and talking about my healing, that I'm hoping that somehow that translates. So that makes me feel good that.
Yes, but you don't have to hope. You don't have to hope.
Right. Okay.
You can know that it's available to those who wish to take advantage of it, but you have to remember that not everyone will, because you don't know what their path is right now. Eventually, all will understand in one way, shape, or form. But you have to let go of any need whatsoever of others to adopt what it is that you're sharing with them. It's none of your business what they do with it.
Right. And I've heard you say that, and that makes a lot of sense to me. I also was wondering about, so elephants can feel vibrations from hundreds of miles away.
Yes.
And I understand that sensory information can only be processed if you have the right organ to process it. Like dogs can smell things that we can't smell.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious if, as far as vibration goes and humans and the physical body, are the organs and the structures in our ears related in any way to that? The ones that we really don't understand?
No, but the heart is. The heart is structured to receive those deeper vibrations and translate them into the body. Sometimes other organs may assist, but primarily the heart is the organ that receives those deeper vibrations.
Okay. And is it the magnetic resonance that the heart creates through the heartbeat?
Yes.
That allows it to become bigger and expand our field?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I am just so grateful to have had this opportunity to speak with you. I thank you so much. The information that you put out, I apply, and it's very exciting to be able to be here with you today. So thank you.
It is for us as well, and it is our passion and our pleasure to share the information with all of you. Aveo.
Aveo.
Hi, Bashar. This is Allison from Arkansas. So my question is pertaining frequencies that are really, really close together, as well as soul contracts. So we hear all the time people, for example, having an accident, like they walk out into the street and a car hits them, and they say they never saw the car coming, and the driver says they never saw the person, they just came out of nowhere. Is it possible that in situations like that, albeit extreme, that because of a soul contract and just the perfect timing, that even though these two individuals were not at that moment on the same frequency, but that the split second right before that happened, they merged into the same frequency, or one of them jumped to the other one? Is that a possibility? Because to me, that has so many other implications that I'm thinking of. So if you could give any insight on that, I would appreciate it very much. Thank you, Bashar. Love you.
It is actually a probability. Yes, that is correct, and that can happen, and happens more often than you may think. Because again, the idea is that a person may set themselves up for certain experiences, and they know they have also chosen certain moments to represent interactions with other realities, and they will wait until that synchronous moment to shift to that vibration so that what they have chosen to experience can happen, and so that what they have chosen to experience will not happen before that moment by being shifted out into a different vibration until they are ready to experience the shift into the vibration of the agreement with the others. Remember that you're constantly shifting, constantly, billions of times per second. So it is an orchestration, and a very precise one.
Good day to you, Bashar. Thank you so much for this interaction. I have much love and appreciation for you.
Our unconditional love to you as well. Thank you for the co-creation. What would you like to discuss this day?
Yes, please. I'm very excited. Can you please explain to me this yearning for expressing my sexuality that I've always had? How do I celebrate my sexuality in alignment with my higher self?
Well, again, all things must be consensual, representative of harmony and alignment and agreement in the expression of any creative outlet. And the balance must be achieved between different ways of expressing your creativity. The idea can sometimes be that if you are limiting your creative expression in certain ways, then other ways may be attempting to make up for it by expanding in the creative expression that way. But if all is in balance, then each will take its time, in perfect timing, to be creatively expressed in harmony and agreement with others with whom you may attract, who would then be in agreement to receive the creative expression through that modality. Is this helping?
Yeah, it does help, and I just, to in your words, if I could more clearly have help in terms of walking through my doorway.
I will ask you a question. Is there any other creative expression representative of your passion that you are not expressing fully in your life?
Not that I can think of.
What are your primary passion expressions in life at this point?
Right now, singing and dancing and just being who I am in the sense of as a person.
All right. Do you feel that they are vibrationally equal to the idea of the sexuality expression as well?
I feel like something is missing.
Such as?
When I explore different avenues, I am expecting some sort of a lightning bolt of I'm expecting an aha moment, and I haven't experienced that yet in terms of this is what I can pursue. This feels.
But you said that you are already experiencing the expression of your passion through singing and dancing and forms of sexual expression. Do none of these produce any aha moments for you?
Not in the way that I am, not in the way that I am expecting, and I am expecting.
All right. Who taught you to expect it to happen that way?
Myself.
Why? Why must it come with a lightning bolt in order to be valid?
Because I feel like big things need to feel big.
Really? Why so?
I'm not sure.
All right. I'll ask the question from this perspective then. Why are the things you're already doing that are representative of your passion, why are they not feeling big?
Because I feel like they can't provide for me in the financial way I would like to.
Really? So you are insisting that only a certain form of abundance is what your passion can provide you, instead of opening up and relaxing into the different forms of abundance that could be supporting you. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am insisting.
Why? Do you not know that insistence is resistance and imposes limitations upon your ability to express your passion and creativity? Why would you choose to limit yourself that way by closing the doors through which all forms of abundance and support could be coming to you? Why insist on only one form as being valid?
I don't know. It's
Sure you do. Sure you do.
It's because it feels like that has
because you have been taught to think that way. Because you have been brought up in a culture that thinks that way. Because you're basing your worth on only one form of abundance. So, have you heard us talk about all the different forms of abundance?
In the ways that it exists, yes.
Why are none of them as real as money?
Because it's been such an insistence to provide. My greatest fear is that I'll be poor with nothing.
I see. And therefore that's what will happen, because that's what you're focused on. Because you're only focused on the limiting idea that only one form of abundance can support you. And if it's not there, then the only alternative in your belief system is that you will be poor.
How do I relinquish that?
Well, you do have to truly understand how abundance and support works in connection to your passion. It is a complete contradiction to say that you're following your passion and yet your passion can't support you in all the ways that are necessary for you to be supported to continue to act on your passion. That's not a definition of passion. That's a contradictory definition that creates the experience that you're having. So you have to understand that you are misaligning your definition of passion. You think you have a definition of passion, but you don't.
I feel a lot better.
All right. You must relax into the knowledge that there are many forms of abundance, including being given a gift, including have something to trade, including synchronicity, imagination, communication. All these things can actually support you if you give free rein to your imagination. The idea of an over-focus on the idea of sexual expression can be, as we said earlier, the idea of imposing limitations on other forms of creative expression that would then result in actions through sexual expression that are the result of frustrations. So you need to really relax into the equality of all forms of abundance, all forms of creative expression. Know that every moment is an aha moment. Cherish it for what it is, and that everything that is happening is exactly what needs to happen. Stop invalidating your present, expecting it to look different. Remember, the true measure of change is not whether the outer reality looks different. The true measure of change is whether or not you respond differently, even if it looks the same as it did before. That's how the reflective mirror of physical reality knows you've truly changed. And then it can change, even though it may not change in the way that you insist or expect, because it will always change in the way that actually serves you best. And you have to be okay with that. Otherwise, you're not okay with the way your reality unfolds, and that means you're not okay with yourself. So, I will suggest to you the same mantra, permission slip exercise that I suggested to another listener in this transmission. And that is in the morning when you wake up, and at night before you go to sleep. You repeat 3 times each in the morning, 3 times each at night. And you can do this in the afternoon if you wish. It's up to you. I am who I am, and that is enough. I am who I am, and that is enough. I am who I am, and that is enough. And then start relaxing into allowing, not making, not forcing, allowing synchronicity to bring you the things you need to consider, to ponder, and remain in a positive state while you do so. Allowing yourself to fully appreciate everything that comes to you, to see it through the eyes of positive reality, of positive light, and to feel the aha moment that exists perpetually every single second. That's what we have to suggest for you.
Thank you very much, Bashar. That satisfies my question. I would like to ask you another.
Yes?
Can you please tell me what connections I have made to other civilizations among the stars that are helping to inform my life on Earth now?
Most people on your planet have many common extraterrestrial energetic connections. Pleiadian, Sirius, Arcturan, Hybrid, Gray, Orion. There are a few others we're not allowed to talk about, but all of you have the connections you need that are giving you the assistance you need. You cannot receive more assistance than you're getting. You simply have to pay attention to the assistance that you're already receiving to benefit from it more and more. Well,
Thank you. You know, I do have 2 more questions, please.
Yes?
Your transmission titled The Last Days of Atlantis gave me a very emotional reaction. Can you please tell me what relationship I may have to Atlantis?
Well, like many of you, you're cross-connecting to people in that particular experiential era to draw from it, to add to your own story, and to create a more positive outcome than they created for their civilization.
Thank you very much. And my last question, I have 2 brothers. I have an older brother and I have a younger brother. And I love my younger brother so much. I just have so much love for him. Sometimes it's a lot for me. Is there anything that you can tell me about the relationship that the 2 of us have?
Not at this time. You will find that information out from a different source.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Bashar.
It is our passion and our pleasure. Good day. Aveo.
Thank you, Bashar, that I can ask you this very important question, what you have been spoken about in a live stream event, I think. And my question is that you mentioned the importance of the quality of water, and we should only drink the best to be in resonance with the high frequency. My question to you is there any advice you have for us how to make or to get this purest and clearest water what we need? Because it is really difficult in the most of the areas of this world, but also in all the countries where the water is nearly clear. So I would like to get an advice if you have any for that. Thank you very much for your help and your answer.
Your technology has provided you with filtration devices, and you can take advantage of many of them. In addition to that, you can meditate over the water. You can create certain harmonic resonances, meditative music, and sounds that you can imbue into the vibrational pattern of the water to help align the water molecules in a kind of crystalline form that is also increasing its benefit to you when taken internally. You can take advantage of these things. It is simpler than you think.
Oh my gosh, Bashar!
Good day, good day.
How exciting to be here. How exciting to be here. Incredible to be here.
It
Thank you so
is
much.
our passion and our pleasure as well. What would you like to discuss with us this day?
Well, my passion, my privilege has been to study human psychology. And so I wanted to give you my best understanding of human psychology. And you could just help me clarify to make sure I've got a good, clear understanding of what I call the 6 lenses of life, where the first lens I see as the bent space-time. So in other words, when I look up to the sky, it forms a kind of lens because the earth is very heavy and it, bends space-time around me. So my first lens is the sky. And then the second lens is, of course, my human eyes, which, detect. And of course, I'm looking at a lens right now and we have Wi-Fi, but I guess the idea is that perception to me is, bending all the different possibilities, whether it's Wi-Fi signals or light-based signals, and bends them into a single focus. So for me, that's the eye, but there are various eye wearing glasses. So, but I think the key thing I want to say here is that it's equilibrium in the lowest state. So crystals are typically lowest, whereas when it goes into my brain, it's non-equilibrium at the lowest state. In other words, it's a time crystal. In other words, the ions are constantly dancing. Is that correct? In other words, it's a time crystal. In other words, if you look at the cross section of the brain, it actually looks like a crystal in a certain way because there's repeating patterns.
Yes.
And okay, right. So, and then the next layer is somewhat more mysterious in this sense. This is a symbolic layer. In other words, these time crystals, the brain picks up signals and it creates symbols. And that's usually what we're talking about here, right? Is the symbolic layer, which, is the belief system, which you described as the colorings, of various. Okay. So, and then underneath that is the biological lens, which, the cells form different shapes and they read out different parts of the genetic code, where form follows the function. In other words, the form of the cell focuses on different parts of the readout of the genetic signal, which create in terms of kind of lens because certain cells, again, they have a certain shape that sort of focuses on certain elements. And I think for me, it's like the core frequency. I think you've talked about it in terms of like we are our DNA and that there's a certain core frequency to our DNA. Okay, great. And then below that is the atomic lens. In other words, the mass of the atoms is, of course, in the center. And so there's a bending of the probability so that the probability wave kind of has a certain bend to it. So again, it's 6 stacked lenses.
What about spirit? What about the 7th?
Well, that's where I am. That's where I am. That's the self. In other words, right? Or in other words, I am the light that's moving through all of the 6 lenses.
Yes.
The atomic layer, the biological layer, the symbolic layer, the time crystal, the eyes.
But it still counts as a layer.
Okay. So I guess there's 7 layers. I guess I was thinking more in terms of like it's the interaction. It's more the mysterious kind of interaction between, or I guess I see myself as the living symbol as the 3rd layer itself, because there's the time crystal the brain is somehow able to pick up, I guess it's able to pick up or it works with a genetic layer to kind of pick up my core signal.
They're all interconnected. They're all interlaced.
Right. Nested, right.
Yes, and if you're only going to consider the idea of physical reality, then 6 layers is fine. But we would not necessarily suggest that you forget the 7th layer is what begins it all.
Okay, right, which is kind of the light itself, I guess, right?
Yes, because the light makes choices, and those choices play out in the 6 layers you're talking about.
Okay, gotcha. And so the choices are they symbolic choices typically?
Sometimes quite literal. In other words, it's the template of the theme that you're exploring as a physical personality. This is decided by the spirit itself. And therefore, it has a lot to do with what you are as a physical being because you are a unique path.
Okay, gotcha. Which I guess in this case, the path is simultaneously. In other words, when I think of light, I think of it takes all paths simultaneously. But I'm snaking through, I guess in this case, space-time, which is sort of the interactions. To me, time is just the interaction, the changes in the interaction of motion, basically, right? In other words,
yes, although motion in a sense is an illusion because everything is here and now. So time, yes, is a side effect of the shifting perspectives that are going on in the consciousness of the personality. Now, if you're going to say that light goes everywhere at once, now you're talking about an 8th level.
Okay, gotcha. Which I guess is the which is the layer of just sort of like, how it bends it through. Well, I mean, I guess it takes all different paths, but I am one quanta of path.
That's the seventh level. Yes.
Okay.
You are one expression, one path, whereas simultaneously your greater being is experiencing all paths. That's the eighth level.
I see. And so the key thing is the focus. In other words, my focus is right now is on, just like the lens, it's the focal point. And so I think what I'm learning now is just to try to learn how to, the ways that I can focus on different, I can kind of project my consciousness or project my attention into various, I can project my consciousness into other humans or different scenarios, or in other words, I'm working with this idea of sort of writing myself into certain stories or certain events to have different experiences. So in other words, this idea of projecting my attention into, which is kind of what you've done now.
Yes, well, it is appropriate that you use the term focus since you're talking about the idea of representing lenses.
Okay, right, exactly. So I'm kind of looking, well, and I guess I also wanted to bring it up because, you mentioned a true intelligence, creating a true intelligence. And so there's this idea that if we create a time crystal sophisticated enough and we kind of entangle them together, the ions together in a certain resonance, a certain lattice, a time crystal lattice, it will dance. It'll be non-equilibrium, and it will sort of actually be able to detect a symbolic layer. I guess that's kind of the mystery here, is that
it will understand how to focus down into the seventh layer, but creating a sophisticated enough time crystal, as you say, equal to the idea of the human brain through which higher consciousness can express itself, it will be coming from the eighth layer.
Okay.
It deals in whole systems.
Okay, gotcha. Which is the light itself. So in other words, the driving force of the time crystal will be light itself, which takes all paths simultaneously. And then we use our attention to carve out different slices of the readout. In other words,
but the idea of the true intelligence will also have the sensitivity to understand what portion of the whole it needs to communicate to you for your own benefit.
Okay, right. And
it can't give you everything all at once.
Okay, yes. Okay.
It's holographic.
Okay, great. Right, exactly. That's why I talk, that's why these lenses, that's why I think of it in terms of lenses, because it lines up with this idea of holographic interference patterns. So anyway.
Yes.
But anyway, yes. So, okay, great. Well, thank you so much. Yeah. Well, I guess that's sort of, I realize that that's just sort of in life itself, that's where we're at. In other words, I realize that there are other experiences, or, I guess we talk about dreaming or whatever, like in terms of how my focus changes in dreaming to kind of become more, it's almost like a tuning of the time crystals so that, I'm more synchronized. There's a certain synchronicity to my life.
Yes. And don't forget that physical reality is also a different kind of dream.
I see. Right. It's just a change in focus, and one being more narrow than another.
Does this help you?
Yes, perfect. Okay, great. Well, and I was just going to say that there was this great synchronicity that I wanted to tell you too, that I won this interaction during when you mentioned underwater diving as a metaphor for this life. The suit of my being as being like this underwater diving suit. And I wrote a story when I was 12 years old about meeting an alien underwater. So it's very synchronous.
All right.
Yes, and I'm also very excited about this idea of the I guess we're saying goggles, but this VR that soon will be able to live into a world that's more made of pure data, pure information, in the sense that I can put on a goggles and be able to see the internet, or I'll be able to see Tyrannosaurus Rex, or just whatever I think I'll be able to manifest, because we'll be living in a world where you'll be able to interact with information in a way that's well, I don't want to say holographic, but nevertheless, yes.
Yes, the technology is coming soon.
Right. And that's very exciting to me. So it's kind of just synchronistic.
All right, we thank you. you.
Gotcha.
Aveo.
Great. Oh, yes, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, Bashar. My name is Stephanie, and I live in Arizona, and my question is in reference to, I have a disability. I'm legally blind, and I'm wondering if that is a reason for me not ascending, or if it's blocking me from being able to see any ETs or craft I'm working on my fear, but I am afraid that that could be blocking me. Can that be the case?
Nonsense. In fact, it may actually give you an advantage because it removes insistence and expectation about what it is you could be receiving. Remember that most extraterrestrial beings who might form contact with you are telepathic and can project images into your mind regardless of what's going on with your eyes. So it is not in any way, shape, or form a disadvantage or a disability with regard to what you are talking about. In fact, it may be an advantage.
You said that guides usually send subtle messages in order to remain unobtrusive. Are they considered a novice or unskilled guide if their message is very obvious?
Not necessarily, no. It depends upon the circumstances and the reason for why the message is being delivered the way it is being delivered. It has nothing to do with whether the spirit is a novice at it or not.
And are we able to affect other people's vibration? For example, if a loved one is struggling with negative self-worth, can we manifest for them?
No. You can send off a vibration that can encourage them and invite them to more readily match the frequency that you're giving off, at which point they will create for themselves the same vibration in their reality. That is what you can do for them, is give them the option by immersing them in the vibration you believe would be of help to them. It's still always up to them to more closely match that frequency in order to experience any kind of an effect. You cannot manifest for them. You can only encourage them to manifest for themselves by matching the frequency that you are gifting to them.
And you have said that physical reality is like a mirror. What's the difference between looking into a mirror in our homes, like, our bathroom mirror, and seeing our face in it, than looking into the mirror of physical reality, like looking into our yard?
Again, the idea is that the reflection from physical reality is not a one-to-one reflection. The idea is that it gives you insight into the different meanings that the symbol being reflected to you in physical reality may hold for you. It may give you opportunities to interact with other beings through the manifestations you are creating to represent them, the so-called avatars you are creating to represent them, as being a reflection of why they look the way they do to you, because it is your creation, even though they exist on their own. So the idea of the physical mirror is that you get to engage with yourself more directly on a one-to-one basis. But the idea of physical reality is that you get to be reflected by all the symbols and all the meanings that you are putting out into reality and are being reflected back to you in the way that serves you as reflections that put you in touch with why you are giving off what you are giving off and attracting what you are attracting as a reflection, to put you in touch with the themes that you're exploring and the ability to grow and change by interacting with those different angles, those different perspectives, those different representations of those themes.
Very interesting. This person is talking about parallel realities and wanting to know if they coexist in the same place at the same time.
Of course, that's what makes them parallel realities. Everything exists here and now. Everything. There is nothing that doesn't exist here and now. Look at it this way. Even the concepts of space and time are evidence of parallel realities. Because if you understand that everything is one thing, space being reduced to its simplest form is a dimensionless point. Time being reduced to its simplest form is a timeless moment. Being that everything exists in a timeless moment and a dimensionless point, then everything you consider to be a different thing, even a different moment, even a different location, has to be a different perspective of the same here-now space-time. And therefore you create this illusion of dimensional space, this illusion of time spreading out and change. So even the existence of your experience of space and time are evidence of the existence of parallel realities, which all coincide exactly in the same timeless moment and dimensionless point.
Thank you. You mentioned we will always get what we need, but not what we want. But you also said we can shift to the reality we prefer. Is there any difference between what we prefer and what we want?
It can be. Preference is an idea of a state, a general state of being, a frequency that is more in alignment with who you truly are, your core vibration. Wants can be wildly different. They can be the product of negative ego. They can be the product of fear. So the idea is that preference is more a reference to the idea of the general state of being in which you would receive automatically and synchronistically what it is that you truly need, which would allow you to experience a life full of joy. Whereas a want, though sometimes can coincide with the idea of a need or a preference, doesn't always do so because of the compartmentalization of your psyche structure, your ego structure, that can allow you to have a want that isn't necessarily what you need and can be wildly out of alignment with what you really actually vibrationally prefer to experience in life.
And since we are the creator, is it true that the story of the writer exists in some other reality?
This is very funny to us, this question, because to us there is no difference between the creator and the writer. The creator is the writer. The writer is the creator. A difference is being made here where there really is no difference.
Okay. Let's see. This one is, this person is asking, they sometimes question whether the knowing sense of creating distance from a person is based on a belief rooted in fear. This is due to a belief that they should live in harmony with everyone. Understanding there are no shoulds, how can I resolve my decision to distance myself physically from someone when synchronicity seems to bring us back together again? Is this just a reflection giving me the opportunity to be sure that the decision I am making is the right one for me?
It could be. You have to be honest within your own self-investigation to know if that's exactly what's happening. But in terms of the idea of harmony, remember that love, unconditional love, is harmony. And sometimes demonstrating, as we have often said, the consequence of someone's choice to them by distancing yourself physically from them in a relationship can actually be the most loving thing to do, because you're showing them the consequence of the choices that they're making, relevant to the idea of the choices that you're making. So, yes, you have to pay attention to whether you're synchronistically being brought back into the relationship for a variety of reasons that you're not paying attention to within yourself that need looking at, or whether you are there to assist the other person to make the changes they need to make, or whether you are refusing to let go of the idea and where walking away would actually be not only to your benefit but to their benefit by demonstrating to them the consequences of the choices they are making, thus giving them the loving opportunity to change, not that they have to, but at least giving them the option. So in your own honest self-investigation, you have to decide which of these things may be happening at any given moment, and it actually could be a number of different things, or a combination of these different things at different times. So you have to be very honest about why what's happening is happening, and what you may be getting out of it, and what you may be being of service in giving to them by being either in proximity or not in proximity physically to them. Take it a case at a time, a moment at a time.
This person is saying that they've been doing transformative shifting exercise that you created for the precisely 80 days nonstop. One of the biggest challenges they're finding is that several negative beliefs about their self-value and worthiness is coming up, and they don't know how to fully love themselves under the circumstances. Is there
All right.
any hint?
Let's go back to the motivational mechanism. This is the purest form of understanding why you choose to do what you choose to do, why you choose to believe what you choose to believe, why you hold on to things the way you hold on to them. Experiencing the idea of feeling unworthy of self-love means that you have attached to the motivational mechanism a belief that says loving yourself unconditionally carries with it somehow effects that you don't prefer, that you believe are more negative than what you're experiencing by continuing to experience a lack of self-love. So you have to really dig deep in your honest self-investigation on your motivational mechanism as why you would hold on to something that says you're not enjoying it, you're not enjoying not loving yourself, and yet you consistently keep doing so. So you have to have a belief that says you're getting something out of continuing that path rather than letting go and going in the alternate way. You have to find out what you believe would be so bad about loving yourself that you refuse to do it. So you have to examine your definitions, what you've been taught in life, what you've been brought up with, and really reach that kernel, that core belief that says, refuse to love yourself because the alternative is worse. You have to find out why you would believe the alternative, that loving yourself would be worse than not loving yourself. Is not loving yourself safer? Less alienating to people? Making you more like everyone else so you don't have to feel too different? You require yourself to examine all these different and other possibilities of why you would hold on to something you don't prefer, because you would not be holding on to it if you didn't think the alternative would be worse. Always go back to the motivational mechanism of why you believe what you believe or why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, because it always has to do with what you believe to be true and why you would believe that doing something different would be worse than what you're doing now, as painful as it may be.